Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal for this week's episode of Inside Arsenal Extra Time, where as always, I'm joined by James Benge of CBS, who is back from a brief little trip to Sicily, feeling suitably refreshed, I hope, although you did have to enjoy the second half of England's win against Wales at Wembley last night, which I'm sure did bring you back down to earth. But it's good to have you back. How have you been? Was it a good trip?
Oh, yeah, it was lovely, thanks. I managed to get sunburnt, not on my face, happily. But yeah, to those folks in the comments who say that all I ever seem to do is holiday, you are correct. All I ever do is holiday. And
That
is
was
the
a
way
short
to live.
one. How long were you away for?
3 days, just 3 days. So it's lovely weather. We were in Taormina, which we've been to quite a few times. Beautiful, beautiful town, city. Yeah, we did arancini making classes. So maybe next time you're in the press box, I can bring a few rice balls to the Emirates. Not that we're short of feeding, but I could maybe pop some. I know Tom Canton brings cookies to pressers now, so maybe I could try and one up him with them.
I think you would one up him with a rice ball. I have to say. So glad you had a good one. I did joke, of course, that you did go to Wembley, like pretty much straight from the airport yesterday. Good first half, not so good second. Job done, obviously, by that point, and it was just a case of sort of seeing things through. But yeah, you did get to witness a very, very good Bukayo Saka goal, historic goal. In fact, now the all-time record goal scorer for England, who plays for Arsenal, overtaking Cliff Bastin, who set that record about 90 years ago, which is pretty mad. But yeah, lovely goal from Bukayo Saka. 3 goals in 3 games for him now, which is pretty promising for what's to come after the international break.
Yeah, the Arsenal boys looked so good. I mean, it was only, I know Lewis Skelly came on right at the death, as you sort of hinted there. I was already gone by that time. It had been a long day. So we just called it a day early on. But yeah, Saka in particular, you're seeing now a player that you can't even just double team him. You have to double team him really hard and aggressively. And even then he might get space for a shot. And Rice and Elliot Anderson, by the way, I know that Arsenal have solved their midfield for the next few years, potentially with Martin Zubimendi. But if they hadn't, I would be hammering on that. Get Elliot Anderson to Arsenal train. That guy is a proper player. I am head over heels with him, and certainly feels like the sort of player England have been crying out for pretty much our lifetimes.
Wind the clock back about 18 months, everyone was saying this about Kobe Mainu, to be honest.
It's true.
As
but
well.
Anderson's a bit more disciplined, I think, and a bit more controlling. But yeah, you are right. We do tend to get overexcited, and I am very overexcited about Elliot Anderson.
He does look good, though. Fair play. He does look good. But I do just hark back to Kobe Mainu and his breakthrough, and some of the comments that I heard players that people describing him with, and just thinking, my God, calm down, everyone, calm down. And yeah, he hasn't been able to sort of kick on from that. But yeah, great goal for Bukayo Saka. Great night. Declan Rice captain, of course, as well, which is a big moment. I think that was his first win, because in the first game, I don't think England won when he was captain, did they? I think they drew. I think Jude got a last-minute equaliser against someone. I can't remember who it was. But they won last night and won convincingly. So a proud moment for Declan Rice. And I thought he played well in that, especially in that first half when England was so dominant. Wales just couldn't get out. I thought Rice had a really good game.
Yeah, really, like he spoke about this after the game as well. One of the things that Arteta's been unlocking in him, and it seems that Tuchel wants to allow him to do as well, is almost play as a 6 and an 8. You know, you saw him getting up in around the box and really threatening there, because of course the brilliant Elliot Anderson was covering for him. And we've obviously seen that so effectively with Arsenal as well. I mean, he is adding so much to his game. I think he said as well, look, I was a bit off colour early on this season, but I feel like I'm building to this stage where I can do everything that a midfielder needs to do and do it in the space of one game like that. My only note for Thomas Tuchel, I like Declan Rice taking those in-swingers from the left. Why is he taking the ones from the right? That's Bukayo's job.
I didn't even notice that. Was Declan Rice was he doing outswingers from over there? That's weird.
Doing outswingers. Come on. This is basic, Thomas.
Yeah.
Let's get this right.
Yeah, that does sound bizarre. I don't know why he'd be doing that. Interesting there I was reading Rice's comments after the game when he was talking about the sort of little bit of a tweak this season where it's like 6/8 box to box, all that sort of stuff. And we are seeing that more at Arsenal. We're seeing him potentially playing a little bit closer to Zubimendi than maybe we saw him playing with Thomas Partey at times last season. Interesting little tactical shift from Arsenal, and the fact that he seems to be playing the exact same role now for England as well, it certainly seems to be benefiting him, I think. Because when you're as good as Declan Rice, you know, this kind of Roy of the Rovers type footballer that Rice is, where he can play in so many positions and play him so well, you don't really want to be just sort of pigeonholed in one, whether it be a 6, which he was when he was at West Ham, or whether it kind of was as an 8 last season. Sort of that little bit of freedom to play a bit deeper, but then drive forward and arrive in the box and do everything. It seems to be bringing the best out of him, and it does seem like that is probably his best position.
Probably. I think obviously, like, since we last spoke, we got the midfield we wanted of Rice, Eze, and Ødegaard for all of 15 minutes.
I don't know if that is the midfield that I want, by the way.
Well,
it's
it's
an
a
exciting
midfield.
midfield. It's
Yes,
an
exactly.
exciting looking midfield. I'm not sure if that's the midfield I want.
You can want more than one midfield. You know that you don't have to be monogamous towards your midfield in the Arsenal engine room. You can take your pick. But I'm still quite. What I was going to say is I'm quite intrigued as to whether so much of the deepness with which Rice has been playing is just that Arsenal have had a horrid start to the season. You know, when it comes to these more favourable games in the coming weeks, are we going to see Rice as more of a pure 8 and you can leave Zubimendi back there? I'm like you. I think you kind of let the players tell you what they're best at. And right now, Rice has developed his passing range quite significantly over the last 18 months. He's much stronger on the ball. Like his shape receiving the ball looks much more impressive to me. Very much not the trained eye. So I sort of think it would be a pity to sort of pigeonhole him in a role where he doesn't, where he gets sort of 10, 15% fewer touches of the ball. Yeah, let's get him on the ball, and if he can do that while also attacking the box, which we've seen he could, so much the better for Arsenal.
Yeah, he got that free kick, didn't he, just before half time, in the exact position he scored the second against Real Madrid. And I was talking on the Discord, we were chatting on the Discord as the game was going on, and I said, it's like, do you think Declan Rice ever scores a free kick again, or do you think it will be that one magical night against Madrid? Because he's never scored one before, did he, Madrid? Those were his first direct free kick goals against Madrid, and he's not scored since. He's not had that many chances, like realistic chances. That was a chance last night. But I do wonder, are we ever going to see him score a free kick again, or will it always be that night where everything just came together when it comes to Declan Rice and free kicks?
I think you're going to be wrong quite soon, because it's when he hits his corners, they are like on the goal line. I think we're going to see Declan Rice score directly from a corner in the near future. Like he I don't know where he learned this, and like he didn't. No one was talking about this when he left, but he just puts the ball on a sixpence. So yeah, I think we'll see a few. Might see a few from Saka as well. I think the days of Martin Ødegaard sort of slightly under hitting free kicks into the wall. I don't understand. Much like I don't understand where that Declan Rice as David Beckham thing was. I don't understand how Martin Ødegaard, one of the best ball strikers I've seen in an Arsenal shirt, cannot kick a free kick over a wall. I think his days of taking free kicks may well be long gone.
I love Martin Ødegaard, but there is nothing more frustrating than seeing him standing over a free kick and knowing exactly. It was the same with Mesut Ozil. I had it with Mesut Ozil for years, which used to just wind me up so much whenever Mesut Ozil stood over a free kick. Apart from the goal he scored against Liverpool, and I know Martin Ødegaard scored one against Burnley as well from a free kick, but apart from the goal that Ozil scored, the free kick there against Liverpool, every free kick he took, every single one was just floated softly into the wall every time. And it used to drive me absolutely mad. And it was the same with Martin Ødegaard. Obviously, it's been a quiet week. We should say that Brazil have just played. Just as we were starting recording this, it's just finished 5-0. They won over in South Korea. Gabriel Martinelli, unused substitute in that game, so no injury for him, which is good. Gabriel did play the full 90 minutes at centre-back, kept a clean sheet. So the internationals are kicking off. Obviously, we had them yesterday with England during Timber. Christian Norgard played. We've got a few more in action later on this evening. So the football is starting again. But other than that, it's been a fairly quiet international break, apart from one big, giant story revolving around a big certain piece of real estate in North London called the Emirates Stadium. And it's something that's been going on for a while. You know, we know behind the scenes there has been these feasibility studies going on, and Arsenal been talking to various architects and industry experts to try and find out what, if anything, they could potentially do with the Emirates, and they're trying to decide on the best route to go down before, ultimately making a final decision and deciding whether to push on with it and actually make it, official and go to Islington Council and do all that sort of stuff. We're still way off that at the moment, but Telegraph obviously reporting that things are moving forward a little bit with it, and mentioned Wembley and all that. So it is a big story that's going to impact a huge amount of people in the short term, and for the long term as well, with potentially a lot of new seats being added to Emirates Stadium. Before we get into the sort of ins and outs of it all, what are your sort of initial thoughts on the expansion of the Emirates, and the good points and the bad points? Because there are certainly worries that I have in my mind about this, but I can certainly see long-term picture it would potentially be a good thing, and I can see why Arsenal want it. So what are your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably fall on the side of the Emirates does need a refresh. I think when you go to even the London Stadium, but certainly Spurs' ground, and see what they can do there, and some of the stadiums in Europe, it does feel behind the times, kind of in terms of fan experience. And a lot of the fears I have about the finished product are kind of also around fan experience, but like the connectivity is quite poor. Getting a pint is too much of a task compared to when you go and get a pint at a gig or at a game at Tottenham. And, I also think, of course, there's the really compelling logic to the Emirates Stadium is not as much of a 365 days a year venue as it could be. This summer it's like Boyzone, and maybe there might be some other bits and bobs dropped in. Spurs are going to have some of the biggest artists in the world, and that means they can, get a cut of some of the biggest ticket prices out there, and they'll have NFL, they'll have all the other strange stuff they do. Of course, that each of those positives, there's a flip side as well. I would worry a little bit about, those extra 10,000 tickets. How many of them are going to be for your general supporter, your general season ticket holder who's paying a lot of money? But how many of them are going to be at sort of at the price level that most of us couldn't even imagine paying? Some of them is, how much people don't even earn enough to pay for those seats, and that would sort of worry me, that it might become corporate and bland and a bit more of a neutral entertainment venue rather than a home for Arsenal. I hope that sort of as they're doing this, and like what you said, Charles, these early stages, so almost kind of folks in our position are in a position where, like, if anyone's watching and people start the debate about what's important. And I think what's important is how can you make the Emirates even better atmosphere wise. We've seen it wasn't all about that bowl, but that could be improved. How can you add to the sort of sense of it as a home? It still looks a bit like a bland concrete, a generic stadium that's had some nice wraps put on it, but the sort that you might kind of put up before a concert. Can you make it feel a little bit more like an Arsenal stadium, Arsenal's home? All those things are, I think, opportunities. And then there's the other thing that I just already hate the idea of going to Wembley. Just from a practical perspective, I don't like Wembley Stadium. I don't like the area around it. I don't think it would be great for the fan experience, no matter how much it's improved over the last few years. It won't feel like home. It'll be great that some fans who wouldn't otherwise have got to go get to go. But I promise you, come November, December, when we're all trying to get from North London to Wembley, which is a horrible journey, there will be a lot of grumbling, I promise you.
Yeah. No, I think that's very well put. Very well put. I mean, where I stand on it, I think it's necessary. I do think it's necessary. I think when you look at the Emirates, although it's only 20 years old, in that 20 years, how stadiums have moved forward, how technology has moved forward, all of those sort of things. I think that the Emirates already looks and feels a bit tired, more so than it probably should when it's only just 20 years old, or not even 20 years old at the time, yet anyway. Obviously that anniversary comes next season. I feel my big fear is we have waited an awful long time to be good at football again. And to do this now, just as we are good at football again, potentially, is just that nagging thing in the back of my mind of, when we did this last big stadium move, we had the greatest team arguably this club has ever seen, and then we did the stadium move, and then we have not won a league title since then. And it was really tough. Like, the first 10 years were really tough. It wasn't much fun. The money wasn't there. It was obviously the football landscape changed completely at the worst possible time for Arsenal as well. But the money wasn't there to compete. And, Arsene Wenger did an unbelievable job, to be fair. An unbelievable job to keep us even where he did for a lot of it, for that, certainly that first sort of 10-year period at the Emirates. And to sort of to risk all that again now would be my big fear, I think. I would like to see some real assurances that where the money would be coming from, how it would be paid, and how that would not impact football operations like the move did previously. Because this is going to be a massive, although it's just going to be potentially adding, I don't know, 10,000, maybe 15,000 seats. It's going to be a huge, huge project to do it. And
you're
so
basically rebuilding the stadium.
Well, pretty much, exactly. Yeah, it's not just a case of just whacking on a few extra seats. It's a massive, massive project. Because of the Emirates and the limitations in terms of what you can do there, it's going to be really, really complex, whatever they have to do. And so it's going to be a big build. It's going to be a big construction job, and it's going to cost a lot of money at the end of the day, an awful lot of money. So as long as, I think I would certainly want to be comfortable with it, I would like to have some, proper assurances from KSC, whoever, about how it's going to be done, how it's going to be paid for, and how it's going to impact football operations. But I do think it's necessary, and that is the thing. And I can see why the Cronkies would be looking at it. They've built SoFi. They know full well, first-hand experience, what that stadium can do and how much money it can bring in, and everything like that. So I understand why they're looking at London and they're looking at Arsenal, and they're thinking, we can try and do something fairly similar there, which is going to massively, massively boost the revenues. Just look at Real Madrid. Barely added any new seats. I'm not sure they've even added any new seats. And they've doubled their revenue in the stadium. So it makes sense from a business point of view. Of course it does. And also, you want to compete, and you're looking around, you're looking down the road at that lot, and they've got an unbelievable facility there, and we'll see what Chelsea ever manage to do, whether it be build a new one themselves at some point. You want to make sure you compete, and you want to be the kings of London, really, don't you, in terms of what you own? I know it's stupid to say that, but you kind of do. It is just that, Arsenal, the most successful club in London, they want to have the biggest stadium, they want to have the best stadium and all that sort of stuff. So
we know why Spurs Stadium has the capacity it does.
Well, exactly, and it's just a little one-upmanship, isn't it? And it is petty and all that, but it was clear exactly what they did when it came to capacity. They just wanted to be able to say they got a bigger capacity than Arsenal, and Arsenal will be looking at that, and again, it's petty, but they'll want to do exactly the same thing and say, well, get back in your place. We're bigger than you. We're better than you. So yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. But my big fear is just around the actual process of it happening, and what it means to the squad, and what it means to this team. And Wembley just fills me with dread. It literally, 2 years of Wembley fills me with absolute dread. But we had a question actually here. One of the questions that was sent in, it was from Tristan. Says, how long would you put up with a stand being closed or being at Wembley versus how many more seats at Arsenal? Any features you would not want to remove? I saw an interesting poll. I think it was Red Action put a post out yesterday, put a poll out. They were like 40,000 at the Emirates stay while construction's happening or move to Wembley. And I'm not sure. I don't think it's possible because of how the Emirates is anyway, because it's a bowl. Yeah. It's not like you can shut one stand and do that and keep the other stands open, is it? I don't see.
I wouldn't think so.
And they'll have to lift the whole roof off. And so I don't see how there's any way that we'll be able to.
If they did stay, I would not enjoy sitting out there on a rainy Sunday in December, would you?
No, can you imagine? Can you imagine? So I don't see a way of staying at the Emirates. I mean, I said 2 years maximum, and that would feel way too long to me. But I think it's unrealistic to think it would be anything less if they do decide to do it. I mean, they're not going to be able to do it because they're going to have to what? They're going to have to either dig down, even if they do dig down and they improve the top tier, they're still going to have to lift the whole roof off, which is a massive thing, probably build a whole new roof for it. So, I mean, 2 years feels like
a miracle to do it in a year, or yeah. And then when if it's past 1 year, it generally ends up being 2, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Features. I mean, I think for those folks that aren't sort of in the area, and maybe haven't got to go to the Emirates or maybe have been once or twice, and it's it's a flying visit. I mean, this is one of the busiest areas in London. This is prime sort of right the way around, busy roads. How you do the sort of construction around the Hornsey Road, the Holloway Road. I mean,
Well, you have
Hornsey Road.
two major train tracks running overground,
Yep.
literally next to it, and you've got the underground underneath it as well. So it's the most, like you said, busy, packed piece of small land that they've managed to construct this big stadium on.
And so everything would have to be done so slowly. I can promise you, as a local resident, people would be moaning constantly about, the traffic being shut and how. I mean, my immediate thought about this was, how am I going to get to the tip if they are? Which is, for those of you that don't know, is just the other side of the Holloway Road. How am I going to get there to take my when I've got too much cardboard for the week? How am I going to get there if they've shut the Hornsey Road because they're rebuilding the stadium? And I'd be livid, and I'd be calling up anyone I knew at Arsenal saying, "Get it open." I agree. It's a 2-year deal. It feels like to me, and I think Tottenham fans didn't like being at Wembley at all, did they? And I think Arsenal fans, those of us that are long enough in the tooth, will really remember just how unpleasant a different Wembley was for those Champions League games when everyone turned up playing, what seemed like one of the biggest games of their career, because they were at Wembley and just smashed Arsenal to pieces.
Yeah. I remember Dynamo Kiev, and somehow Arsenal actually drew that game 1-1. Rebrov got last-minute equaliser, but it was one of the greatest performances from a team I've seen. Kiev were unbelievable. They were they got to semi-final that season. Real Madrid knocked them out, and I really thought they were going to win it. And they played us off the park. Shevchenko and Rebrov up front. Oh my God, they were unreal. We lost to Barcelona. We lost to Lons, I think. We lost to Fiorentina. Gabriel Jesus scored.
Oh my God, I've never seen anyone kick a ball so hard.
I know. It was just so hard to win because everyone just raised their game massively. And I mean, Tottenham got to grips with it, didn't they? It started poorly for them, but they did get to grips with it the longer they stayed there. And look, Arsenal, at the end of the day, we're a very, very good team now. And I think wherever we play, we can play very, very well. So at least we'll be doing this in a position where they're a really strong, great squad, great team.
Here's one that I don't know if anyone's asked this, but it's sort of floating out there. What about the London Stadium?
No, I would rather Wembley than London Stadium. I cannot stand that place. As much as I dislike Wembley and the mission to get there. And in fact, for me, actually, Wembley's not that bad to get to, by the way, from where I live. But the London, I hate that ground with such a passion. Yeah. I would hate it. No, I can't even consider the prospect of playing football there for 2 years. I can't. It would be so bad. You must feel the same as that.
Yeah, I do. I just intrigued because it's the only other option, isn't it? And maybe there are certain folks, that are sort of East London Arsenal fans that are firmly of the view that the London Stadium would be great. But I feel like unless you live on the actual tube line or in Stratford, surely you wouldn't prefer the London Stadium to Wembley.
No, that place sucks, man. It's horrible, horrible place to watch football. I can't stand it. So it was interesting to see how things progress. I suppose we'll have to watch with interest. Everyone's going to be watching with interest because it does just, it's a massive thing for every Arsenal fan, isn't it? It really is, in terms of what it could potentially mean for the future, but certainly what it could potentially mean while any work is going on as well. So we shall see with that. Right, we're going to go through. We've got quite a few questions. Going to try and get through as many as we can today, as there's not that much more to talk about in terms of actual general news which is happening, of course. This one is interesting. This is from Casper. He says, "Hi guys, can't you rate who of the Arsenal players could be the most satisfied about the start to the season and the least satisfied? For me, it's between Big Gabby and Timber. They are so important defensively for us to have the best start to the season, in my opinion. On the other hand, players like Ethan MLS must be disappointed on the amount of minutes. Another worthy mention could be Odegaard because of the constant injuries. Happy to hear your thoughts." So I thought this would be a good conversation to have at this stage, sort of looking back at where we are, 10 games, I think, gone in all competitions, totted up. I can't believe we've played 10 games already this season. It's mad. And so a little bit of discussion about maybe who are the standout players, who's maybe our player of the season so far, and sort of go into this question from Casper on maybe, the players who are a little bit disappointed. So off the top of your head, and I haven't shown you this question first before we've done this. So off the top of your head, do you have a sort of standout player that you've seen so far this season, you think over everyone maybe has just excelled that little bit more?
Yeah, for me, it's quite easy. It's Ricardo Calafiori. Second among Arsenal players in the Premier League for shots and expected goals, doing all that while being a really strong defensive player as well, offering Arsenal this. Arsenal is such a regimented team and it's really effective what they do. And yet they still have a second striker that's also their left back. A guy that can pop up in either penalty area, that works hard, that has kind of got the fitness we were so desperate to see last season, and could be anything for Arsenal in any passage of play. He could be someone that helps Arsenal control the midfield. He could be someone making those late number 8 style runs into the box, or he could just sit deep, be a forced centre back. He distributes fantastically from deep as well. I think he's been Arsenal's best player this season, with very, very strong case for Yuri and Timber at number 2. Those two have both excelled. They're fantastic, and they're one of the reasons Arsenal have been so good in the last few weeks. Easy.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree at all. I think those are my 2 standout players so far this season. I think they've both been absolutely brilliant. I think Zubimendi has been really, really good. I think those 3, Big Gabby as well, I suppose, as Casper says, he's barely really sort of put a foot wrong. He's had to play without William Saliba at times and sort of marshal a young centre-back through. But yeah, I think Calafiori, I don't really want to label him as a surprise package, because we knew what he could do. We knew how impressive he can be. But the fact he stayed fit, the fact that Mikel was clearly gone all in on him from the start of pre-season, he wanted Calafiori in this team. And it's worked. He stayed fit, and he is just. I can't even imagine what he's like to play against. He is, and we always use the word chaos when you describe Calafiori, but there's not really any other word to use, because he just is chaotic to watch, to defend against, I imagine, to play against, to try and attack, because he's so strong and physically capable. Yeah, I think he's been brilliant. If I'm naming my player of the season right now, I think it's him. But it would be Timber pushing him the closest, I think, as well. I think Timber's been magnificent. Timber's performance away at St James's Park, you will go a long way to find a better defensive performance against a really tough player to play against. I think he was brilliant, and he's been brilliant. I mean, you just have to put your FPL cap on and look at the points that Calafiori and Timber have accumulated already this season as well. It just shows what they're doing. But I do think Zubimendi. I spoke yesterday at length in my show about Martin Zubimendi and how I just think the way he's adapted, how quickly he's come into the team, the difficulties he's faced in terms of fixtures and real baptism of fire. I think he's exceeded I thought he was going to be good, but he's exceeded my expectations so far. I think there's more to his game than I thought there was going to be. And I'm really excited about what he's going to continue to bring as the season goes on, having come through this really difficult first batch of fixtures. So I'd certainly have him up there. But yeah, I'm going Calafiori as my player of the season so far.
Yeah, love for Martinelli as well, just because, especially because, I mean, obviously got the player of the month, didn't he, yesterday? And as I said on Twitter, that for me, September player of the month for Arsenal is pick your favourite new signing award. And I think it speaks to just how much he's won himself back a place in supporters' affections, which is lovely to see, and I think well deserved, because he's embraced that role off the bench. And in that role, we said all summer long, if you've got Martinelli coming off the bench, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I spoke about him in my show this morning, actually, about that Player of the Month award. I just think it's really good for a player that so many people seem to be very keen to sort of push out the door in the summer, which I never quite got. I mean, I wouldn't have been, if a good offer had come in, I think it would have been right for Arsenal to consider it. But to sort of, for so many people to really be wanting to almost shove him out the door for whatever money, I just did not understand that at all. And I think the way he started the season and the impact he's made, I think he deserves a load of credit. And it's just good to see, because again, I spoke about it this morning, but Gabby feels like, maybe not quite to the extent of Bukayo Saka, but we've seen him come in. He's been so integral to this journey that Arsenal have been on since Arteta arrived, from this young kid. And he's just been such a constant the whole way through. And if Arsenal are to achieve what we all hope they're going to go on and achieve, this season or at some point, you kind of want Martinelli to still be here and to be able to enjoy that, because it just means a lot to a lot of fans. So yeah, I think he's had a really good start season. I think Trossard as well, again, has surprised me. I think he's made a bigger impact than I thought he was probably gonna do. In terms of players who will be disappointed, is disappointed the right word? I said frustrated, probably. I mean, I think Ethan, he still played. He's still come on. He's still
5 games.
played minutes. There's no one that massively jumps out apart from Martin Odegaard purely because of the injuries, because he's endured more hard luck in the first 6 weeks of the season. I think any player would want to endure over about 2 seasons. I think he'll be very, be feeling like, I just want this season to start again, or almost. But even MLS and Ethan, although they maybe not have got the minutes, they're still 18, 19-year-old kids, and they're still playing. They're still, they're still coming on in games. They might not be starting, but I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing for kids of their age. They're way ahead of schedule almost when it comes to where they are playing for Arsenal. So I don't know. Is there anyone else who comes to mind? Norgard, I suppose. It was a big move for him. He's not really getting a look in.
And a little bit of Ben White, but
yeah,
I don't really want to over-index that. I'd like to, in a way, I think it's good that White's got a few minutes under his belt, that he's, even the little niggles he had, that they've been a bit brief, and hopefully come the sort of turn of the year, and I know that feels like too far off, but he's had a rough time. Hopefully come the turn of the year, we're seeing something more like the Ben White we know. It's just niggles and stuff, isn't it? You hope that Odegaard only being a sort of MCL rather than an ACL or anything like that is his first lucky break in a while, and he can go on from there in however many weeks it will be. And at least we're talking weeks or a couple of months rather than a season.
Yeah, I mean, Norgard, I suppose, the only one. I'm sure Norgard, when he signed, probably thought by this point he might have had more minutes than he's had. Even when Arteta rested Zubamendi at the weekend, it was Rice who played in the 6. It wasn't Norgard who came in and played in that position, was it? So he's very much sort of third choice when it comes to potentially playing that role. So maybe he'll be a little bit disappointed in terms of what he was hoping when he signed in terms of what he got now. I'm just looking through some of the other names. Obviously, Madueke will be disappointed, but only because he's got injuries. He's got injured. He's started the season in fantastic form. Hincapie will be frustrated at what's happened to him since he's signed. But there's just no one else who really sort of stands out there for me. If you're doing a rating, as similar to player ratings, would you go as far with Calafiori and potentially Timber as 9 out of 10 so far?
Yeah, they'd be the 2 9s.
I think that's the same. That's what I'd have. I think I'd probably have 2 9s, and I'd have both of those two, and then I'd have Gabriel and Zubamendi on 8. So I'd probably have David Raya on 8 as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of 7s and 6s.
Yeah,
which actually is fine.
Arsenal haven't hit top gear yet, have they?
Yeah.
They've absolutely not hit top gear in this season.
Exactly. Like they've, you would expect it to be okay if I said to you at the, when we were looking at that fixture list back in July or June, whenever it was, and I'd said, we're going to kind of come out of this early start to the season in this second international break, and we go, yeah, actually everyone's fine, really. Like no one's disappointed anyone. Maybe and a few players have been good. You'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds grand. As long as we've not had anyone, it feels like the sky is caving in on them. That feels like a good way to get through probably your toughest part of the fixture list.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's move on to a couple more questions. Now, Max says, do you think it's a mistake sending Zinchenko out on loan? Would the better decision have been to keep him instead send MLS out on loan for more minutes? I think it's a bad look for Arsenal to send a player that should be commanding a decent transfer fee on loan to run out his contract, feed into other teams thinking we're a pushover in the market. Also, MLS needs more minutes at this stage of his career, either to better serve Arsenal in the future or to increase his value to later sell. No, I don't think it's a mistake sending Zinchenko out on loan. I don't. And I don't think MLS needs to go out to get more minutes. I have to say, I think he's going to get plenty of minutes for I was going to say 18. I think he's just turned 19, hasn't he? But I think he's going to get plenty of minutes this season at Arsenal. And I would much rather have him in my squad than Zinchenko for this season, when I think we all know that this season's about desperately trying to get the job done. So I don't think it's a mistake, to be honest. And I think Arsenal would have sold Zinchenko in the summer, but I don't think any offers arrived to be able to do that. So they had to send him out on loan late on.
Yeah, Zinchenko's a super sort of he's a player, especially now that he spent so many years playing as a left back. He's a player that really only a sort of handful of teams kind of would make space for and would need. It sounds like he's playing okay at Forest. I mean, who knows how that will all look in a few weeks if Ange Postecoglou's out of his job. As for MLS, I would say, he's played 390s effectively in terms of minutes so far this season. Played a Champions League game, played it well. And we are right now at the stage of the season where the fixture list is fairly manageable. They've had a few runs of Saturday to Saturday. And if you look like how it's going to look after the November international break, there is no way Lewis Skelly is not playing a lot of games.
Exactly. And who do you want to play in a lot of those games, Zinchenko or MLS?
Arteta would not play Zinchenko
No.
except in emergencies. Might have more of a chance selling it to me that Arsenal would have been better off keeping Kieran Tierney for whatever reason. Well, we know the reasons. In the end, Arteta sort of gravitated to a way of playing that just didn't quite suit what Zinchenko brought to the team. And I would want to say what Zinchenko brought to the team in 2022 changed Arsenal's levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for that. But, with the best will in the world, your services are no longer required.
Yeah, I think he's a classic example of how far Arsenal have moved on so quickly. Right, we've got one here from 99 Red Baboons. Says, hi, Charles. 2 questions for you and James. Given the starts of the season of Gyokeres, Sesko, Ekitike and Isak, do you think Arsenal made the right decision signing Gyokeres? Secondly, which current Arsenal player do you think is most likely to one day win a Ballon d'Or? I refuse to believe there's ever going to be a day that an Arsenal player wins Ballon d'Or, just because I lived through the era of Thierry Henry somehow being ignored for that award. And if Henry doesn't win it or never won it, then I just frankly don't believe that I'll ever give it to any Arsenal player ever, because that's such an absolute daylight robbery for Thierry. Given the starts of the season of Gyokeres, Sesko, Ekitike and Isak, do you think Arsenal made the right decision signing Gyokeres? Oh, that's a nasty one. Go on then, James, answer that.
I'll go first on that one, shall I? I don't think we could quite have known how good Ekitike looks like he's going to be.
I don't know about that. I think he speaks to a lot of people who watched him in Germany. I think quite a lot of people thought he was very well positioned to be very good in the Premier League.
That's true. He's the one that will feel like he got away at quite a bit more money, we have to say. And that's the thing I would sort of keep hammering home about Victor Gyokeres. As much as it felt like the big signing, of Arsenal as contenders, 60 million isn't starter money for a team at Arsenal's level anymore. I mean, go and look at City's bench, go and look at Liverpool's bench, which often includes Hugo Ekitike. Despite the Liverpool fans that loved shouting at me that I was wrong and that Ekitike would be the guy playing off the left. How's that going for you so far? So kind of, while it's big money, it's not even quite like 72 million for Nicolas Pepe a few years earlier. He can be good enough. Knowing what I know now, I might have been more tempted to go for Ekitike. Isak, it's so much money. I know Arsenal spent a lot, but in the end, some of those other deals that you made probably couldn't have been made if you bought Isak. And then to the other question, Saka, I suppose. Really, he's going to have to be a forward, and he's the best forward.
Oh, I'd love to book Saka to one day get the Ballon d'Or, because that would certainly mean that Arsenal have won the Champions League, so that would be very, very nice.
Or England have won the World Cup.
Yes, that's very true. Also, that
and Arsenal
still probably won't happen. It still probably won't get it for an Englishman. I don't know. I think it's hard to answer that question right now, really, isn't it? It's still so early on. I mean, we've seen nothing of Šeško really at United. He's started to score a couple of goals, but he's still bedding in there. I think it's way too early to make a real sort of firm judgment on it. I do think Ekitike looks very good, and I do look at Ekitike and think, he would have been pretty tasty in this Arsenal team. But I've still liked what I've seen, mainly on the whole from Gyokeres, and I still think there's going to be a lot of improvement for Gyokeres. I'm still very confident he's going to score between 15 and 25 goals this season. I think he's showed more recently to his game than I maybe thought he had. So, I'm still quite happy where we are with Gyokeres. he could easily be sitting on 6 or 7 goals now, easily, if he just had a little bit more luck, I think, and we'd be all delighted with that. I think he'll be disappointed that I think he's played 10 games and he's only scored in 2 of them. When you look at it like that, you think it's probably been a slightly underwhelming start to the season for him. And I think I think it's right to look at it like that. But I do feel like he's just been very, very unlucky at times as well. And he could easily have 5, 6, 7 goals right now. I would, and I've said this before, I would like to see him just to be a little bit more alive in the penalty area, just be a little bit more front-footed. I always, so far anyway, when I look at him, I keep thinking, you're just a fraction behind play, either actually in terms of play or even a fraction behind in your brain type thing about anticipating what's about to happen. And for someone who's got the goal scoring record that he has, I kind of maybe expected him to be a little bit sharper in the penalty area, not just be about running the channels, but also be sharper in the 18-yard box. But hopefully that will come. But I've been quite happy with what I've seen from Victor Gyokeres. And I think you go and ask all the Arsenal players, and certainly ask Arteta. I think they're fairly satisfied with what they've seen so far. This is one from Terry. It says, what do you think of the links that have been floating around about Gabriel Jesus leaving in January? Personally, it seems a bit of a strange one to me. After pretty 2 years of knee problems, his value will never be lower. Also, if he's going to be fit enough to sign for somebody and therefore play football in January, I think he could be a big help in the run-in. We do have a few trophy winners in the squad, but he is the only title winner that I can think of. What do you think about this potential transfer? What do you reckon? Leaving in January, Gabriel Jesus, worth it or not?
Yeah, my assumption, everything I've heard about where Jesus might go if he goes would be Brazil. And it's worth saying that Brazilian clubs have a bit of money, especially those that have just taken part in the Club World Cup. And, Gabriel Jesus may be good enough to do it in the improving Brazilian league, but not kind of good enough to make a big impact for Arsenal in the Premier League. And so if someone from Brazil wants to sort of come along and offer you a nice fee for Jesus, and that affords him a outside chance at taking a real swing at getting into the World Cup squad, I kind of put all that together, and I kind of would look at that and say, thanks for your services, Gabby. We'd love to get your wages off the book. Phenomenally talented player that you are. It might be time to say goodbye. Of course, if that team doesn't come along, I would be pretty intrigued and open and excited about could he get back to the level to just be a bit Danny Welbeck in 2015-16, but Arsenal win the league. That would, that wouldn't be the worst case scenario. But, equally, if you sort of said to me at this stage of 2015, someone's going to come in with big money was it even 2015? He'd had one injury. You know what I mean with Welbeck. If someone come in at that stage and said, you can kind of make a bit of money on Welbeck here, probably would have said yes as well. So if the money's there, I don't think you want to sort of keep hold of him just in case he has that moment against Leicester.
Yeah,
but he probably won't. But if it doesn't, fine.
I still feel that I'm not sure I'd be that keen on letting him go in January. If he's got 6 months worth of football to play, I'd rather him play it for Arsenal this season of all seasons. I just feel like when you look at the squad that Arsenal have got, clearly it's never going to be as good as it is now. From next summer onwards, there's going to be some sales because it can't stay at this size, can it? It just can't. It's not sustainable, and there will have to be sales next summer. So the squad next year, I think, is going to be weaker. I just think that's inevitable because of the sheer size of the squad now, because they didn't let anyone significant go in the summer and they signed 8 players. And I think Arsenal are okay with that for this one season because, this season is all about, come on, let's get it done. Let's move from second to first finally. And so if you're having a season like that where you're just like, sod it, I don't care how big the squad is for one season, it's like, well, you may as well have this multi-title winner if he is fit, just coming back and maybe giving you 6 months and then go in the summer. So I'm not overly keen because I still think he could, if he gets fit, he could have something to offer to this team, something a little bit different. And then, in the summer, by all means, look, Gabriel Jesus is not going to get in the World Cup squad for Brazil. It's just not going to happen. I'd be
it's quite a good squad.
Yeah, I'd be stunned if he comes back from this length of time out and forces his way into that squad. I'd be absolutely stunned. So no, I would be, if I was Arsenal, if I was Arteta, and I just think he'd be like, no, you know what, just give me don't let anyone go in January. Just let me have this squad for the season, and then we'll sort it out. We'll reduce the numbers and we'll get it to a more manageable level in terms of the wage bill and in terms of just the substitutes bench. But for this season, I just feel like Arsenal are a little bit sort of all in on that.
Yeah. I suppose if he does play well enough to get back in the Brazil squad, he probably is good enough for the Arsenal squad.
He's not going to get in the Brazil squad.
You tell him that. You and I know. We've talked enough footballers. Tell him that.
Sorry, Gabby, you're not getting in the squad, mate. But I'd be very, very surprised. Although saying that, I mean, they've got loads of good wingers, haven't they, and wide players. But in terms of sort of nines, they're still messing around with Richarlison up front and players like that. So maybe. Because I saw the Palmeiras owner. I think it was the owner. There's some quotes from him today about saying that Gabriel Jesus is definitely going to come back. That he's going to come back soon. Whether it's as soon as January, we'll have to wait and see. But thank you very much, Terry, for that one. We've done Tristan's there. Levant Francis, no, that's not Francis. Farcelli says, "Hi, Charles and James. Love the show. Seeing as the squad is in such a good place, could you both put yourselves in Berta's shoes and guess as to what outgoings and incomings would be priority over the next couple of windows? Hope we can win the league this year." I mean, this is a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I don't see massive amounts of incomings next summer. I would be very, very, especially if they're out of Moose Stadium, not Moose Stadium, but do what they're going to do with the stadium. I do wonder, as part of me as well thinks last summer and 8 signings, is that with a view to potentially having to put the brakes on the finances a little bit? Who knows? That's me maybe put 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5. I think outgoings is a more interesting one there. We've just been speaking about it. I think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 significant outgoings. I think there has to be next summer, and it might be for the first time in a while. It might be there's a couple of those that, on the whole, the fans don't really want to see go, but might happen. I've got a couple of names in mind. One of them's Ben White. I think, again, I would not want to see Ben White go, but I can see Arteta probably behind the scenes has been getting a little bit frustrated with his lack of availability, and he's been looking at Jurriën Timber, and he might see that as a potential decent fee, or maybe not him, but the club might see that as a decent fee to come in if a good bid comes in. I don't want to say it, but Ethan Maneri,
yeah,
as well. Again, I don't want to see that happen, but when you're in the era of pure profit and PSR, and if he's really not getting many minutes, if Max Dowman is just looking more and more like the guy, potentially, if a bid comes in for someone like Ethan, it would be massively unpopular, but I wouldn't say that's beyond the realms of possibility.
Leo would be the obvious one as well. Trossard or Martinelli or both, because potentially then what you do as well is you can turn those 2 into one extra star attacker.
Yeah.
We know that Mikel Arteta loves Kai Havertz.
I knew you were going to say him there.
Loves him. And I think you would, he'd be holding on to his coat and onto his trousers as he left the building if that was what was to happen. But contractually, he is the sort of one that looks like it. You could build a world where it happens, and maybe you could sort of think that Bayern Munich would look at Havertz and say, he's someone that could be really useful for us in the future, and we'd pay good money to bring him back to Germany.
The thing with Havertz is you'd have to go out and spend an awful lot of money on another striker for a second year in a row if you do that. The likes of White and Ethan and Leo and Martinelli, maybe, well, certainly White and Ethan. And again, I'm not pushing for them out the door at all. I don't want that to happen. But, that you'd be selling them from a point of they've already got players ahead of them in the pecking order. If you're selling Havertz, you've got to spend massive money then to bring in another striker alongside Victor Gyokeres, don't you?
Yeah, the logic for selling, like, you would try and sell Havertz and a left winger and cross-fund that to buy a really good striker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even one that usurps Gyokeres. I mean, I think Havertz will, if he's fully fit, would usurp Gyokeres. So, there's not a lot. And if you said to me, actually, it'll just be the same squad next season, I'd go, yeah, fine.
But I don't think it will be, will it? It can't be. It can't.
No.
It can't stay this size.
But I think it will be like a left winger goes,
Yeah.
like maybe White, but I think maybe you kind of have to cling on to him unless his form comes back up a bit.
Mm. But that's what I'm saying. The strength of the squad now is that any sale, basically, from this point on, is going to be a fairly unpopular sale, isn't it? Or could be. It's going to be a big player leaving. I mean, what, Mikel Merino maybe would be someone they'd look at next summer. And maybe that would allow Ethan to have more of a sort of route into the team if you get Mikel Merino out the door ahead of him. We know Arteta loves Mikel Merino and the versatility he brings, but maybe he's another one who could potentially go, and that would open up the pathway more for Ethan to avoid that, pretty uncomfortable decision that you might have to make with him. But then you look at the forwards, Havertz, Madueke, Trossard, Gyokeres, Martinelli, Eze, Jesus, Saka, probably maybe scratch Jesus out of that. But if anyone wanted to go there, that would be a fairly big, significant sale. We're just in that position. There's no dead wood anymore, is there? There's just not. It's just really strong everywhere you look. It's really, really strong. So any sale is going to be either potentially unpopular if you want to make big money, or you're still going to be selling a significant name either way. So
keep Merino for set pieces. I want more set piece boys. That's my aim.
Well, whoever would come in to replace him probably be massive anyway. Matt Evans says, has Zubi already become the Arsenal player that they can least afford to lose to injury?
Up there, right up there.
It's such an important position in the team, isn't it?
Yeah, him, Saliba, Raya, Saka. Even Saka, Madueke did pretty well there. But you'd be playing Rice at the 6, so it's, again, champagne problems, but probably the cheapest champagne problem, if that makes sense, would be losing Zubi. Yeah, I think Matt might be right there.
Well, it's just such an important position, isn't it? It's the heartbeat of the team and how they play, and the way he sets the tone and sets a tempo, and the way he picked that up so quickly, I think is really, really impressive. So I think he would definitely be up there. I mean, the fact that Arsenal could then just move Declan Rice to number 6 is a great position to be in, and even have Christian Norgard sitting on the bench as well.
At this exact moment, I suppose it's probably Gyokeres.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Right now, if everyone's in the state that they're in right now, so no Havertz or anything like that, Arsenal cannot afford to lose Victor Gyokeres at the moment. For everything that all the spotlight people are putting on the lack of goals at the moment, he is still unquestionably doing a massive job for the team. And if he wasn't there, it would look like a very different Arsenal team. I think if you're suddenly moving Leo or having to play Mikel Merino, well, actually, it would be playing Mikel Merino up front, wouldn't it? Again,
it would.
Yeah. Simon says, fewest Premier League goals conceded in the season was the 04-05 Chelsea team with 15. Is this Arsenal side capable of matching it? And how does our defensive midfield compare to that Chelsea team? Who was that Chelsea team? I probably should have looked before I started this. So it would have been, obviously, it was prime checking goal, like the old, which is
Herrera.
Yeah, you had Carvalho and Terry as the centre backs.
Gallas, because that's before Ashley Cole's gone, isn't it?
Chelsea. Well, Arsenal sold
straight as a year after the
2006. Cole went to after the Champions League final.
Gallas.
Who was their left back? Was it Gallas at left back?
I think so. Great person to sit and exchange stories with, as much as you might not like him as an Arsenal fan. There's a man with some stories there. Makelele in front.
Lampard.
Definitely been Lampard, but I don't think would it have been Ballack as well?
SCN was there.
SCN.
Well, this is 05-06 I'm looking at, actually. It was 04-05 was their 17-goal season, wasn't it? Or whatever it was.
Yeah. So was SCN came...
I'm not sure SCN was there then. I'm just having a look.
They tried to buy Gerrard after the 05 Champions League final. Everyone on Merseyside has chosen to forget that Gerrard really wanted to go for a long time.
There was no SCN. There was no SCN in 05, in 04-05 in that first Mourinho season.
Midfielder?
They had. I'm just looking at the squad here. So Makelele had Lampard. Did they have 3 in midfield, or was this when they had Duff and Robin on the wings? Didn't they?
Duff, season? Robin. Maybe it was just Makelele and Lampard then. And then what? Drogba and Johnson.
Johnson are up front, weren't they? And they had Scott Parker, but Parker barely played. Did he at that point? It must have been Gallas at left back. I'm just looking at their defenders right now. They had Jeremy. He played a fair bit, didn't he? Not as a starter all the time, but he played a fair bit.
Dudes can sit around.
And Wayne Bridge. Wayne Bridge didn't. Was he a starter in that team?
I certainly think Gallas was playing more and more and more at left back, and then Cole comes along a couple of years later.
Yeah. So I don't know. How does Arsenal's midfield and defence compare to that? Well, very, very strong. I mean, that was an unbelievable team, that Chelsea team. They were just a machine that season. They were just incredible. Can Arsenal match it? I don't think Arsenal match it. Was it 15 they conceded?
Yeah, I think.
All it takes is one or a couple of 2-2s, or one mad 4-3 like against Luton or something like that, and that's kind of out of the picture. I think that season 04-05, Arsenal did score 2 against Chelsea. Remember, it was 2-2 at Highbury. Henry scored after a minute.
Was that the Henry sort of free kick?
No, it was the one where he brought it down with his right foot and then hit it with his left.
I am looking at the table from that season, and what I would respectfully say, as someone who was a begrudging admirer of Sam Allardyce's Bolton, is I think the 2025-26 equivalent of Sam Allardyce's Bolton would not be 6th place in the Premier League table at the end. I think the Premier League is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that table from then. Chelsea were great. Arsenal were great. United were kind of in the middle of a rebuild. And then after that, you have Everton, a shadow of Liverpool, and then pretty much...
Well, Liverpool were 5th with 58 points.
I know, exactly. It's a strange thing where I think, the middle of the Premier League, there was not really a big 6 back then, even if there might have been financially. Well, certainly weren't 6 of them. The middle could all take a lot of points off each other. But Chelsea at 95, I think they and Arsenal were so far ahead of the rest of the league.
Mm.
And United. I don't think there's quite that level of separation anymore, because I mean, like that you look at I bet if you went and looked at the Villa and Spurs teams of that age, what they didn't have is internationals for like France, Netherlands, Brazil, all those sort of players dotted around their starting 11. And now you look at teams like Bournemouth, Palace. They're bad examples. You know what I mean? Like the mid-table Premier League teams right now are full of elite internationals and elite players.
Yeah.
And all Bolton had was the sort of post-elite players who you loved watching for 36 games of a season, but probably are not on the level of the 6th place team in England now.
No, I'm just looking at their results. They conceded twice, 2 times throughout the whole league season. Once that 2-2 I was talking about with Arsenal at Highbury, and then they drew 2-2 with Sam Allardyce's Bolton Wanderers as well. So that's only on 2 occasions did they concede more than 1 goal. And that's what it would obviously take for Arsenal.
I need to stop slagging off Sam Allardyce's Bolton, clearly.
I can't see a way that I just think you're right. I think the Premier League's so stacked the whole way down the Premier League now. Those mid-table teams are so strong and got so much attacking talent in them that I can't see Arsenal and Newcastle, to be fair, who've I think only conceded in 1 game this season in the league, or 2 games. He's had 1 more clean sheet than David Raya and Nick Pope this season in the Premier League. I don't see anyone matching 15. I just don't. I think that's done. Right. So let's have a couple more.
On, aren't we?
Rizwan says, we're all bored waiting for Arsenal to come back. So I figured I'd ask the way too early question. Obviously, Arsenal have a big squad, and we know on purpose to have the depth we need to hopefully go on all fronts. But I do sense we'll see some outgoings in January. That was it. What do you envisage for January? See, I've kind of answered this question already, but I just don't think, I think Arteta is going to be like, ignore January. Just give me this squad for this season, and that's it. Do what you want in the summer. We'll get some players go in the summer. We'll bring it back down to a manageable number in the summer. But just let me get through this season with this squad and see what we can do. I really think that's what he's going to be saying.
Yeah, Jesus is, that's maybe the one where we disagree, but the only real one. As long as you can keep the players happy and they don't kick up a fuss, I think you go for it this season and see what happens then.
Cool. And then we've got one last one to fit in, just from Slightly Strange John. Says, what do you think is a nemesis for the top 6 teams? As in, what opposition is more likely to beat them? A, the team that presses and attacks them strongly. 2, a team that low blocks and gets them on the break. 3, a team that goes for maximum possession, tries to break them down slowly. 4, a team that likes a good midfield battle. Well, we know the answer to that when you're talking about Arsenal. And it's definitely the team that low blocks. Although hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be a lot better at that this season.
Are we doing the top 6 or the big 6?
I imagine he probably means the big 6. I'm not sure we need to go.
I can tell you the team for United. It's just a team. It's number 5, a football team.
Any team, a team that has a midfield, will beat Manchester United, basically. I don't know. I mean, we've seen slightly different. I mean, Manchester City. Did you see John Stones' comments about the Arsenal game and how he didn't, it was uncomfortable for them having to play like that and stuff. And have we seen a slightly different City team this season in terms of how they played? Do you think that Arsenal game was an absolute one-off, or do you think we're seeing?
No, they did it against Brentford a bit as well, and they are. I checked this yesterday. Over a third of their shots, I think, are going to Haaland. They are really building a team that is reliant on maybe the best player in the world at the moment, but is really about making him the best player in the world. I suppose for that, you'd be looking at maybe the back 5 they've got now and saying a lot keener to press them than you were a couple of years ago when it was, Ederson, Cancelo, Diaz. I think they're a team, that would fall into number 1. It just Arsenal didn't really get the chance to do that because City didn't play. That City went and low blocked them. Liverpool as well, I'd put in category 1. Newcastle.
I think we saw with when certainly that Bournemouth game earlier on in the season when Bournemouth did press them, they made life very uncomfortable for them when they got running at the back 4 as well on the counter attack. So I think there's a couple of ways against Liverpool with this Liverpool defence and the sort of the midfield that Liverpool have got at the moment. I think you can get at Liverpool in a couple of different ways. Yeah,
Chelsea as well. Just probably like kind of numbers right now. I have to say, really impressed with them. Given the players they had when I saw them on Saturday, but I think they're a team that, especially with Sanchez, you can maybe get at their back line a little bit, and we've seen Arsenal when they've had good results have done that more effectively. Because Chelsea will always play to make that game slow. So if you can speed it up, you'll have joy against Chelsea, I think.
Cool. I think we'll end it there because I don't want to talk about Tottenham. And that's your lot. Thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure, as always. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening. I know it's a little bit later on than usual. We don't normally do this on a Friday, although this has been the second successive Friday we've done inside Arsenal extra time. But I think we'll be back more in the midweek region next season anyway. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great start to your weekend. James, have a good one, mate. I'll catch up with you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.